So the A7S III has been out for over a month now, and in today's video I wanted to cover what I feel like are the best lenses you can go ahead and pick up, not just for this camera, but pretty much any camera that's in the Sony Alpha lineup. The A7S III has turned out to be a technical masterpiece in pretty much every aspect aside from photography, which, to be quite honest, isn't terrible either. As content creators, we're always pushing the boundaries, whether it's for photos or videos, and we all know that that lens is just as important, if not more important, than the camera itself. However, at the end of the day, we all know that this camera is geared towards videography, not photography. So let's get into the first lens, and it's the Sony 85mm f1.8. It's the ideal portrait prime lens in my opinion, with a bright 1.8 aperture, giving this lens maximum performance, especially in lower light conditions. It being an 85mm focal length gives us an even deeper shallow depth of field, and thanks to its double linear autofocus motor, you get very silent focusing performance, along with the focus hold button sitting nicely on the barrel. Peter McKinnon called the 85mm focal length the king when it comes to B-roll lenses, and I couldn't agree with him more. This one comes in at $599 right now, which is a fantastic price for this lens. However, there is also an even cheaper version by a company called VILTROX out there that comes in at $399, which is $200 cheaper. And from what I've seen, it has a better build quality, and the autofocus is nearly the same. I will make sure to leave all of these lenses linked down below in the description for you guys if you want to go ahead and check them out once this video is over. This 85mm focal length is definitely one of my favorites. However, like I said, please make sure you go ahead and check out that one made by VILTROX because it is $200 cheaper. The 55mm 1.8 is up next. It is an older lens by Sony and it comes in at $899, but it's definitely still one of the best lenses you can go ahead and pick up for your Sony camera. It's one of my favorite lenses for street photography and videography. It's extremely sharp and has that natural focal length where you don't have to be too far away to catch your cinematic shot. The lens is perfect for low light thanks to that 1.8 aperture, and it's super small and lightweight, making it a great travel lens that you can use pretty much for anything. The only issue that I have with this lens is the minimal focal distance is almost 2 feet, which makes it difficult for product reviews and those other close-up shots. But I'm pretty sure if you're buying this lens, that's not what you're using it for. It's a Zeiss lens, which stands by its name, and it's almost as good, if not just as good, as the Zeiss Otis 55mm 1.4 lens that comes in at over $4,000. How does that sound for value? Next up, we have the Zeiss 16-35mm f4 lens. This lens is on sale right now for $1,100. It's usually at that $1,400 price target, which still puts it over $1,000 cheaper than the 16-35mm G Master variant that Sony makes of this same focal length. It's perfect for vlogging, real estate photography, and landscape photography. And thanks to its 16mm wide focal length, it makes it much easier to snag videos and photos in those much tighter areas. Now, if you're wondering why the new 12-24mm isn't on this list, it's because it's $3,000, and when you take a 16mm lens and throw it on a switch pod when vlogging, it's almost 12mm anyway. Now, I no longer use this lens because I just recently got rid of it, and I ordered the 17-28mm Tamron f2.8, which gives me the same 2.8 aperture you get on that 16-35mm G Master, while saving me $1,500. Think about it for a second, guys. You can pick up the 85mm, the 20mm f1.8 by Sony, and the 17-28mm by Tamron, all for the same price that you would spend on the 16-35mm G Master. I don't know about you guys, but I'd much rather have 3 lenses instead of 1, especially when they're this good. Instead, what I've done in the meantime is I've been using my 20mm f1.8 lens for all of my vlogging and wide angle needs. I mean, when I throw this lens on my camera with the switch pod, it's as if I've got a 16mm lens anyway. Not to mention, this lens has a 1.8 aperture, which makes it one of the best lenses you can buy for vlogging, nighttime photography, and anywhere where it's dark. Combining this lens with the low light performance that you get on the Sony A7S III creates the perfect combination for low light photography and low light videography. If you guys wanted to, I bet you can go ahead and actually vlog at night with this lens on this camera. Let's go ahead and try it.
All right, guys, here we are. Camera's in my face. We're in the dark, and we're on the 20mm f1.8 G lens. Do not try riding a skateboard in the dark because you can't see shit. But yeah, this is what this lens looks like when it's dark outside. So if you guys wanted to, you can go ahead and vlog with this lens. Just crank up the ISO to over 20,000 on your Sony A7S III or your Sony A7S II. But yeah, guys, this is what the 20mm f1.8 looks like. If you guys want to go ahead and vlog with it, by a river over here. Hopefully I don't clip a curb over here and end up in the river with this camera and this boosted board. But yeah, just wanted to give you guys a real world comparison with this lens at night.
Now I'm torn because the next lens I'm going to talk about is my favorite lens, and it's the lens that I'm currently using to film this video, and that's the 24mm f1.4 G Master lens by Sony. It's my favorite one and done lens, and it comes in at $1,400 right now. In my opinion, it's the best lens for street photography and videography. It's insanely sharp and the autofocus is super fast. I can't say enough good things about this lens. It's light, it's compact. Throwing it on a switch pod gives me about a 20mm look, and I'm torn obviously because it's not as wide as the 16mm look I get when I use the 20mm lens on the switch pod. But overall, this lens is sharper and gives me more of that bokeh effect because its focal length is a bit longer. It's my favorite lens, hands down. You can use this for vlogging and street photography with no issues whatsoever. And thanks to its super sharp f1.4 aperture, it makes it a fantastic lens for astrophotography if that's something that you're into. If you guys are looking for that one and done prime lens, nothing beats the 24mm f1.4 G Master in my opinion.
Alright guys, so now I'm vlogging on the 24mm f1.4 G Master lens, and when I throw it on the switch pod, it's almost as if I'm using a 20mm because I do get a little bit more space to push the camera back a little bit more. Now I wanted to compare this lens for you guys with the 20mm f1.8 really quick so you can see how much of a difference you actually get when you throw it on a switch pod and get that extra distance. Alright, and this is the 20mm f1.8 when I throw it on a switch pod. As you can see, you get much more in the background. It's almost the equivalent of the 16mm lens that we talked about earlier, that 16-35. I mean, you really don't need a 16-35. I feel like 20mm right here on the switch pod is plenty. It's pretty much the same thing. At f1.8, you still got that blurry background. Lenses in focus. I mean, this is plenty. For me, this is perfect. And this is one of the main reasons why I got rid of that 16-35. This one is a lot lighter. I mean, it's cheaper and it just feels better. It's much more natural to me. And I definitely like this better, especially when you're carrying around a heavy full frame camera like the Sony A7S III.
Next up, we have the 24 to 105mm f4 lens from Sony, which has that optical steady shot image stabilization built into the lens. Combining that with the active steady shot that you get on the Sony A7S III gives you some of the smoothest performance you'll ever see on a full frame camera. Camera shake is almost non-existent, which helps because this lens is a bit heavier. Whether you're doing photography or videography, this lens will cover every basic need at pretty much every common focal length. And it's the lens I'll throw in my travel bag together with the 24mm f1.4 just in case I need more distance based on where I'm filming or taking photos. Now coincidentally, this lens is also on sale right now for $1,100, which is a great price at this focal length. When I first picked up this lens, it was $1,400. If I had to go ahead and pick one up today, I don't think I'd spend $1,400 on this lens. I'd try to find a used one somewhere. You also have the 70-200, which is also a great lens, but obviously you guys know I do mostly product and tech reviews, and I really don't have a use for a lens that big. If you're someone who does action photography or nature photography, that lens would be perfect for you guys. It has so much more to offer. Even if you're planning on filming sports or anything involving cars, you really can't go wrong with that lens, and you can use it as your one and done for all of those needs. That one comes in at $1,400 right now, and it is f4, but at the same time, that one is also $1,000 cheaper than the f2.8 G Master variant, which in my opinion, I feel like is definitely overpriced. Let me know down below in the comments section what's your favorite one and done lens when it comes to videography and photography. I'm curious. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, whatever it is, make sure you go ahead and drop them down below in the comment section for me as well. I really do hope this video helped you guys. If it did, please make sure you smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.